Hey ladies, I'm Asya Watkins, founder of Women of Project Management, and this is the Women of Project Management podcast, where I have candid conversations with all my favorite women inside the Women of Project Management membership in audio. Please don't forget to subscribe and review everywhere you listen to podcasts.
Welcome, Asya, to the Everyday Entrepreneur Podcast. I am so excited to have you here today. I've been looking forward to this conversation for weeks, and we finally made it happen. So,
Yes. Thank you for having me, Holly. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
yes, of course. I stumbled across your Instagram profile. I don't even know how, but you really caught my attention because I saw Women of Project Management.
Yeah.
And this is something I don't talk about probably nearly enough on the podcast, but the reason why you caught my attention is because I myself have been a project manager. I've built my entire career in the project management space within technology teams at big retailers. And so I thought, wow, how cool that someone has gone out there and created a community for women technology project or women project managers.
Yeah.
And so I was really excited, and I would love to know about your journey. And obviously you haven't been doing this for your entire career. So where did you start out and how did you get started?
Yeah, so it's been a very interesting journey. So project managers, you see, we're everywhere, right? It didn't start out that way though. So initially I thought I was going to be a pharmacist. A little different than, well, honestly, not that different than project management, surprisingly enough. But I thought I was going to be a pharmacist, went to pharmacy school in New Orleans and got to the doctorate program. And then I got into chemistry, all those medicinal chemistry classes. And I was like, oh no, I got to get out of here. I don't like this. It's not necessarily for me. And what I later learned in hindsight is that I love the business side, but not the clinical side of it. And so I finished out my degree, undergrad, and I went back home eventually because Hurricane Katrina did happen around that time too in pharmacy school. So it was a really defining moment. And so eventually moved back to Chicago, which is where I'm from. And I started working for Walgreens because I was working for them before when I thought I was going to be a pharmacist. And I was doing naturally a lot of project management roles, funny enough, district-wide for their stores, making sure they were meeting numbers and marketing and stuff I was doing. I had no business doing because I wasn't in school for it, but I loved it. It was just like my natural thing to do. And then I did a little bit in forensics. I was a forensic analyst. But when I moved back to Chicago, I kind of stumbled into project management because I worked for their project management office on the IT side for their pharmaceutical side of their business at the time. And so I started working in project management. I loved it. And then I was like, okay, all these OCD tendencies, all this organizing, like this is where it belongs. And so I really just enjoyed it. And so I was the only woman on the team. But I was very blessed because I got to work with some amazing guys. And they really kind of took me under their wing and taught me a lot of things. And so I kind of, learned a lot there, had some hurdles, but learned a lot there. And then eventually got recruited to another company on the pharmaceutical side and then went to a different one. And so I've learned a lot, worked with a lot of different clients, organizations, a lot of different things on both the IT side and the business side. Business is definitely more of my love than the IT side. IT side is good too. It's kind of like a framework around it. I know you already know that, but yeah, so it's been this different kind of journey, not a straight A to B, but it's been a good journey and I've learned a lot along the way. Funny enough, I spent the majority of my career on the corporate side managing pharmacists, and then I kind of knew a different perspective. It also confirmed that I don't like chemistry. And all the drugs and the interactions, I'm like, I'm good. But it was it's been a ride, So yeah, that's kind of the short, long version of it. But yeah, it's been a lot of ups and downs, but a lot of lessons learned.
I love it. I love that your career's also taken some twists and turns.
Yeah.
You've noticed like what you do like, what you don't like,
Mm-hmm.
what you thought you might like, and it turns out you do like. And I love how you gave yourself some grace and space to say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, I've invested I have invested time and energy and money going to pharmacy school, but I'm not cut out for this. I'm going to do
Mm-hmm.
something different. And I think that just shows so much strength and courage to actually
Yeah.
pivot when you've
Yeah.
become so far down a path.
Yeah.
I want to get into a little bit of why you started Women of PM.
Mm.
Um, Oftentimes we
Yes.
start businesses because we see a gap in an industry or in a vertical or whatever it is. And so
Mm-hmm.
what was the impetus, or what was the moment, or the culmination of events that really inspired you to start this program? And tell us a little bit about it.
So for me, I've worked in project management unofficially and officially for the last 20 years. And in that time, in the beginning of my career, I found myself, even up to a few years ago, still saying, and honestly, still now, asking. I was so naive at the beginning of my career, saying, "Well, where are all the women?" Because we're project managers. We ask a lot of questions, right? Naturally,
Of course,
which
that's
is
what we get
good.
paid to do.
Yes, to our benefits, to everybody's benefit.
Yeah.
But I always ask a lot of questions. And so when it came to looking for mentors or a woman to turn to, and at the time I wasn't married, I didn't have any kids, I didn't even have a dog. And so it was just like, I wanted to know, well, how does this look a few years down the road when I'm married or when I have kids, and how do you navigate that? And I couldn't find that. And then I kept going through my career. I kept converting people over. I converted my best friend. I was like, you should be a project manager. And so I'm like, this is kind of crazy. And so I said, I did go to meetings, local meetings with project management, and it was great, but I still felt like where are all my people? Like I want to talk to more women. I want more women who look like me. Like there's great conversations, don't get me wrong, with men, and there's some really great dynamic conversations, but there's certain things that you just want to have those candid conversations with women, and women who look like you, and all those different dynamics, and like your little tribe. And so I literally did look for it for a good amount of years. And then my husband but then I got married, had kids. My husband was like, why don't you just create it? Like you've been talking about it, you can't find it. And so I was hesitant at first because I was saying, you know, there's no market research out there for it. There's no one really doing exactly what it is. It's just in my head. And so it's just like, you know what, I got to just make the leap. And so I was like, you know what, I'm just going to create the network. So we're the only network created to support women and women of color in the project management industry in every specialty, because project management is in every industry. What I find and what I've found over the years with women is that we are having the same conversations, the same hurdles. It's just different city or different country.
Different
And
project.
yeah, different
Yes.
project. And so, but it's these same, conversations that we're having. And I think a lot of it is just a lot of us looking for validation of our feelings or experiences, or even a heads up of, hey, how did you handle this situation? And so there's a lot of things we were talking before about, being mistaken as a secretary or the note taker. And it's like, and, a lot of times
Really?
we think we're the only ones. And then you talk to somebody else and you're like, girl, they asked
I
you that too.
can we just have like, an hour long, venting session about the 11,000th person that's asked us to take
Yes.
notes and schedule meetings? Like, I could totally relate
Yeah.
not to going to project management events and not really finding your people. I've found the
Yeah.
same thing. Like some of the
Yeah.
PMP events that I've gone to, or some of the industry type project management specific
Yeah.
events, I've just kind of looked around and thought like, these aren't my people, and actually these are a
Yeah.
lot of the people that I really don't enjoy. So why
Yeah.
why are they being attracted to these programs, and so am I? Like, where are my people who are real
Yeah.
and authentic and
Yeah.
maybe not so conventional and not so by the book? But one thing that you said that really stood out to me is you were looking for people that look like you. and
Yeah.
and I would say, just in complete transparency, that isn't something that I've personally experienced. So I would love for you
Yeah.
to tell us more about that
Yeah.
and why, what you've experienced in the project management industry when it comes to women of color, and
Yeah.
what's been your experience?
Yeah, so I'm always very transparent. I think it's definitely unique of being a woman. Like women only, I was just looking up to say, is that still right? That women only make up 30% of project management of women, of people working in project management. So we're only 30%. But then when it comes to women of color, it's much lower. And then when it comes to Black women, we're a tiny fraction of it. And so then when that's the case, you don't see representation anywhere, and it's a very interesting and unique perspective for Black women or women of color, women too. But when you're walking into a room and you don't see anyone who looks like you, and then on top of that, you're the person of authority and you're the person who's running a multi-million-dollar project. You can get questioned just because you're a woman. Sometimes we find that, I find a lot of women talk, and I've had this in my career too, of I think I was questioned. I don't know if it was because I was a woman or if I was like younger and it was all older men in the room. It could be all of that. But a lot of times as Black women, at least from my perspective, and a lot of women that I've talked to inside the membership, it's very unique, in the sense of you can feel very lonely. You can feel very lonely, and sometimes you can accomplish some amazing things. There's another woman who I did an interview with, and she was the first Black woman a few years ago, the first Black woman who was a director of IT for the city of Chicago, rolled out an amazing project, made city of Chicago #2 in the world, only second to Korea, of having a smart city and the lighting system. And she rolled that out. It was on the news. My mom was telling me about it,
Wow.
in Chicago, and it was amazing. And we talked, just candid conversations inside the membership, and she said, but I feel so lonely when I walk into rooms a lot because I'm the only woman in there. I'm the only Black woman in there. Sometimes I'm the only woman, but I'm the only Black woman in there. And sometimes you can feel in certain cultures, company cultures, that, the weight is on your shoulders and you definitely don't want to mess up, but it's just all of this. It's I don't know if you've ever heard people say this, but some people call it the minority tax. And it's like all these additional things you have to think about of, what's their perspective and what's their perspective. And I think overall I've had, still a lot of great experiences, or I wouldn't be in project management, but I've definitely had circumstances where people have just assumed that I am less than, and I've had to make sure, and I've had to basically come out of my shell, to be able to say, no, I definitely deserve a seat at this table, and to be able to have the confidence, because in project management, when you're on these big projects, everyone's looking at you.
Oh my gosh, you're in the hot seat all the
You're in
time.
the hot seat,
Yeah.
and like you're responsible for every single thing, which we know we're not, but overall we're
People look to
responsible for.
you to say,
Exactly,
Aisha,
especially when they mess up.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly. We're supposed to know
Yeah,
everything at all times and be the most
exactly.
updated, which we all know that's an realistic
Right.
ask.
Yeah.
But then pile on top of that, you are coming into a room with probably conscious bias and
Yeah.
unconscious bias.
Yes.
Did you feel that you had to put more time and more effort and more, crossing your T's and dotting your I's,
Mm-hmm.
to go into that meeting more than maybe a white or a non-minority counterpart would have to do?
Absolutely. And I don't think that's a secret at all.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, yes, I'm speaking from my perspective, but I've also had the privilege of speaking to hundreds of women, right? Through even just the platform. And it's a lot of the same thing. It's so funny. I got off of a member call a few hours ago, and she's a Black woman, and she's in the UK. And she was just talking about how there's a ceiling for women and there's a lower ceiling where she works for Black women. And she went to one of the best universities in the UK. And so it's this common conversation that I think that as a Black as Black women that we definitely, it's not new to us, because there's just things that I think we come in and. To listen to the rest of this conversation, join us inside the Women of Project Management membership at womenofpm.com. Thanks for listening.